You mentioned that this organization, a lot of the soldiers that are getting matched up with these dogs also hunt. And so, or want a hunting dog. They want these dogs for multi purpose. And I think, I told you this. We've reached out to all kinds of cancer detection agency, like research facilities and guide dogs and all kinds of therapy dog trainers, and they don't respond, or they just completely like, we don't want anything to do with you because we're attached to hunting. It's been a real weird, it's been an eye opener for me. So when I talk to you and you're like, dude, our, the guys getting our dogs, a lot of them love to hunt. I think that's awesome. And I want you to talk about that in regards to your training experience, as far as, so you've got to get these dogs, they're PTSD dogs. They have to do certain things for these soldiers. And on top of that, they have to be open to be able to hunt. So like, can you just kind of like walk us through? I know that's a huge process, but like what you're looking for and what you're working on throughout those dogs' development stages to get them to a place where whoever gets them is really happy in that capacity.
Yeah. So I think with Labs for Liberty, we train service dogs for military veterans suffering from not just PTSD, but, maybe they had a TBI from being like an IED explosion, or back issues, physical mobility problems. So we go through the whole gamut, but we try to assign them their puppy at 8 weeks old so that we can have them fill out not just what their mental health needs are and their physical needs, but what are things that they enjoy doing or they used to enjoy doing that they cannot do anymore due to their disability. And then at that 8-week mark, we start exposing those dogs to the environments that that veteran would like to or is already involved in. And hunting, for a large majority of our veterans, is a hobby of theirs, or was at least, prior to their disability, and they want to get back at that. And so what we do is, a lot of our dogs, they need to do things like give and take, where they have to pick something up, go retrieve it and bring it back. And so, it's using integrative training of maybe that give and take of, I dropped my keys, can you grab that and bring it back to me? And then transferring that into, let's say, even like scent training, so that they can identify the difference between keys and a vest. And then that same idea can then be translated into, let's say, duck hunting or pheasant hunting, right? That retrieve, that fetch it up and bring it back. Because obviously we don't want them, when our veteran drops a phone and they need to pick that up, we don't want them chomping down on that phone and breaking the screen, right? So they have to learn to be soft mouth, just like you would bringing a bird back. So ironically, a lot of the integrative training that we do translates pretty well to a hunting dog, because we want that drive for training. We want them to be able to do, a majority of tasks that allow a veteran to utilize them in the hunting realm as well. So it's pretty interesting to see how easy it translates at the end of the day.
Yep.
Right.
So for the listeners, this comes up a lot. What you're saying, and I want to clarify something, but what you're basically saying is the hunting manners, whether it's a duck dog or an upland dog, they're like in the same sandbox as just being a good dog for these people to begin with. So the control, the obedience, the reward, the work, all of it's the same. And then you can just basically tack on, okay, well, now we're doing this in a new environment and there's going to be gunfire around and some other distractions. But you're talking about training a really good dog first, and then that part comes easy. And we hear that, as bird dog owners, and a lot of people who reach out to us are like on their first dog. And they're like, how do I train it to hunt? How do I train it to hunt? And it's like, you got to back up and just train your dog to have good manners, steadiness, all that stuff. And the hunting will come. We'll talk about that a little bit more later, but you said something there and I just want to clarify it. So when you're talking about, placing a dog with somebody, so whether they have a traumatic brain injury, PTSD, all of the above, and want to hunt, don't want to hunt, Are you guys working a certain amount of dogs and then you're like, okay, this dog's going to get placed with this person? Or are you actually finding somebody, accepting them in and saying, okay, now we need to make a dog specifically for this person and train it? Or how does that work?
There's an application process in which, a lot of our veterans that need dogs are through word of mouth because, I mean, veterans talk to veterans, right? And so a lot of times it just comes through word of mouth, and maybe we might have an individual that applied for a dog and it takes a year for them to get it because we haven't found the right dog for that person. Someone that let's say needs a lot more physical mobility. So we're looking to obtain more of a mastiff over a lab because we need someone that can offer that support. So that placement might not be assigned right away. Or we might get a dog that falls in our lap that's been donated to us, and we kind of sift through individuals that have reached out to us, and maybe the fit just doesn't seem right, for that specific dog. And so we'll hold on to that dog until an applicant comes along and we're like, hey, this is the individual for it. So we don't really like pigeonhole ourselves into, a strict process, but everyone does have to go through an application. They go through an interview in which we kind of see what their needs are, obviously proof of them, being, in the U.S. military and going from there. But I mean, we don't always just do veterans as well. We also have provided service dogs to, veterans whose kids have like autism, or in my case, I'm training this mastiff for a little girl with tuberous sclerosis, and her dad helps run the ROTC Air Force group of individuals at the University of Utah, and they all foster for us. So it was a way of us providing a service dog to him for his service giving back to our nonprofit. So it all just kind of intermixes, and we take it one day at a time.
So it's really just a fluid process of the applicants come in, some of the dogs come in, and you're just like, we have to beautiful mind this sucker till we find the perfect match on both sides, pretty much.
Yeah, because we got a Malinois, and Malinois can't go to everyone, right? I mean, they're a Malinois, they're a working dog, and this little girl was just off the wall crazy, and we wanted to try and use her. And, I ended up happening to know like the right person for that type of dog. And it works out perfect for them with his lifestyle. He's very active. He runs a nonprofit that takes other veterans on expeditions. And so he needed a dog with a lot of energy. Mm-hmm. Could that dog have gone to anyone else? Hell no. Yeah. There's no way that dog could have gone to someone else, because her energy is just on another level that most veterans would be able to meet that expectation. Yeah. But it works for them.
Those Belgian Mouse are something else.
I personally love them, but yes.
Well, for sure. But you really got to know what you're doing with a dog like
Absolutely.
that. And you got to understand fully where those dogs come from and what they need. Like the margin for error on certain breeds is low. And, that's why labs are the most popular dog in the country. You can do a lot of stuff wrong and have an amazing lab. Not so much with a Belgian Malinois, like just different worlds. And that lesson comes up a lot with, people ask us all the time, hey, I'm looking at, Chessies for my first duck dog, or, I've never owned a dog before and I want this. And I'm like, if you've never trained, like maybe give yourself a chance with something a little easier to work with, maybe not something so high drive or so headstrong or, however, the Mastiff you're training for the little girl, you've mentioned this twice now. That's a big dog. Is that partially personality and partially because they're big dogs and they can help with mobility?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So she's nonverbal, obviously has some physical disabilities. And so we need a dog that was calm, that can go with her to school, that can also offer physical stability when she walks and things like that. So we look at not just size, we also look at personality, because she needs a type of dog that's a lot calmer type breed.
Yeah, she needs a mellow giant beast.
Yes, not a Malinois. Yeah. The opposite of a Malinois.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Do you feel with your involvement with an organization like Labs for Liberty, do you have this, maybe I'm wrong about this, do you have this feeling like you can never do enough?
I feel like that all the time.
Okay.
And it's especially within that community. I always wanted to join this service, and it's still a possibility for me when I get out of the of PA school. But you kind of, once you identify the things that these individuals have gone through, that a large majority of the public just has no idea, and you identify the need that is there, right? And you kind of feel helpless in a way, because you can only train so many dogs, and you have so many people coming in, and dogs don't cure them of their PTSD either. They just give them an opportunity at normalcy of just, more support, and that's a little different than what they have now. But yeah, I often feel like I wish I could do more. I wish I could get more funding. I wish I could get involved with this community more to give back in a way that, I mean, to almost make up for my lack of service, right?
Mm-hmm.
These individuals have sacrificed not just their physical capabilities, but their mental health for the sake of the freedoms that we enjoy today. And that's a pretty powerful thing. And to hear their personal account on the things that they go through, I wish I could just pass out service dogs like you pass out candy on Halloween, because like it just you see the benefit that it does, and you don't feel like you can even touch the surface of it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I was just, when I was researching the organization and having dug into similar organizations, you just get that impression like there's like no way to catch up. Like there's no way to get everybody taken care of. And you can't, like, my wife would be way more pragmatic about that. She'd be like, well, yeah, obviously. And I'm like a lunatic, I'm like, we got to do something for everybody. And I was just curious about that. I'm going somewhere with this. So the dogs, let's say you guys get a dog donated. It's 7-week-old puppy, comes from awesome pedigree, 8-week-old, whatever. You start working with it. When that, I don't know if this is a case by case basis, or is there like a time frame where you're like, this dog's 6 months, this dog's 9 months, this dog's a year. When is it ready to be placed, or is it just ready when it's ready?
We kind of have a rule of thumb between a year and a year and a half.
Okay.
And we hold training classes. We try to on a weekly basis, in which we evaluate the dogs, and we set, goals for them just on basic classical conditioning. Ideals for them, again, just making them overall a good dog initially.
Mm-hmm.
And then we really don't start integrating the tasks until they're a little bit older. And some dogs at around a year, we have some dogs at 4 or 5 months that are doing all the tasks that a 8-month-old is just barely learning. It just really depends on the dog. Mm-hmm. Mastiffs are a little bit more slow to develop. They don't even finish puberty till 18 months. And so we hold on to them a little bit longer. And then you also look at, does this veteran need, do they have physical and mental health disabilities, or, is it just one or the other? And that kind of prolongs whether or not we gift them at a certain time, mm-hmm. Just based on the tasks that they need to know. You might have a dog that needs to know everything. So like my little girl, that I'm training the service dog for, the little girl has a lot of physical and cognitive, disabilities going on, that Trixie really needs to know everything, right? Mm-hmm. So we'll probably hold on to her a little bit longer than one of our typical labs.
So that is, if you're talking year to a year and a half, I mean, think about what goes into, and I'm talking to the audience here, like think about what goes into a dog in an entire year or an entire 18-month process, the most important training window. Mm-hmm. I mean, those are the formative years. I mean, they just are. And so you think about, all these applications coming in, and now you're like, okay, well, this takes a year to a year and a half to develop one dog. And I mean, it's an amazing thing to think about. It's kind of sad in a way, but it's like, I'm glad to get this story out here to get people to understand that there are individuals out there doing this. And Joan, who we're going to try to get on later, who started the whole thing. There's amazing people out there. And I think it's so cool to hear this story, with these dogs, whether it's this dog for Trixie, or is it Trixie, the name of the dog, right? that you're working
Yeah,
on?
Trixie did it. Yeah.
So whether it's Trixie or it's a lab or something else, is because of their role, whether, working with, a physically disabled child or a soldier with PTSD, is socialization, like, are you guys putting a heavy emphasis on early socialization?
Oh, absolutely. That's why people are shocked that we start them at 8 weeks old. I mean, we're taking that puppy out and about at 8 weeks old merely because the first several months is predominantly just that socialization aspect. Getting them exposed to loud noises, fast moving things, a lot of people wanting to touch them, kids rushing at them, things that, a lot of dogs naturally would react to. So the first several months of their training merely is just basic obedience and socialization. Because we do like the urban good citizen canine like testing, in which we have to expose them in order for them to pass that testing. They have to be exposed to a series of environments and not react to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that has to start at 8 weeks old. And you know what? We are human, and not our dogs don't always get the socialization that they need at that young age. And it is very apparent, like, let's say we have someone fostering a dog in another state, so we can't have our eyes on them as much. And we might bring them back here to do that socialization. It becomes very apparent that they haven't had that.
Yep.
Because of their reactions in certain environments and in public. But I mean, Trixie at 8 weeks old was sitting 8 hours in the classroom with me every single day at 8 weeks old.
That's amazing. I mean, I think I wanted to ask you that. I'm glad you answered it that way. I was hoping that was the case, because I really think general dog owners, two things: truly underestimate how willing and ready a puppy is to work as soon as you bring it home. I mean, over and over and over, I interview trainers who are like, not only at the 7 or 8 weeks when you and I would pick up a dog if we bought it, but even the early neural stimulation of like a 2-week old puppy with the Q-tips on the pads or whatever. And being open to that early work right away, and really being open to the early socialization. Because you think about it in the perspective of a dog that's going to be asked to be a therapy dog for somebody and be in maybe a restaurant or a grocery store or a wildly different environment than we would typically take our dogs into. And you think, well, okay, that dog does need to be socialized. All these dogs need to be socialized. It's a confidence building exercise that you can do over and over again. And so I imagine not only are you guys doing that, but you're probably doing a fair amount of distraction training in those new environments to make sure those dogs stay on task and they can just shrug off all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I'm so glad that you said confidence building, because every dog is different. And you might have a dog that starts out very confident, and you expose them to certain things that they're fine with. And suddenly they might develop fear of something very random like bicycles or skateboards, right? Or loud noises. And you have a veteran that hunts, that, or works at a shooting range. And identifying those triggers for them that generates fear is very essential in driving our training as well, to help build that confidence and figure out ways of exposing them to those factors that are making them shut down. Because again, one dog might not be afraid of the vacuum, where another dog might think that it's, the spawn of Satan as you're getting closer to it. So it's like identifying those triggers for them that generate that fear, and then building that confidence, as they get older.
Yep.